Hey guys, welcome back to another update for my blog, Boricua Fractalus. It's my new personal blog where I talk about anything that doesn't necessarily pertain to the wonderful world of video games. I'm your host, John Rivera, as always, and if you're new, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back. And before I get into the crux of this update, I just want to take a second to direct you guys over to my personal blog. If you haven't checked it out already, it is boricuafractalus.wordpress.com. So yeah, check that out. I don't have the contact information on the site just yet, but that'll come soon. It's still in the process of adjusting the sidebar and all the features on that, whatever. Not really that big of a deal. That will happen with time. And also, I want to direct you guys over to my website that I manage and I founded back in '07. Called The Solid State Gamer. It's a gaming website. It's coverage on all things video games. Did I mention that it has a lot to do with video games? Yeah, probably did. We like to do stuff that is kind of falls into the category of oddities. We do cover mainstream stuff, but that's not necessarily our core focus. We like to cover stuff that is off the beaten path, gaming related, that most mainstream websites kind of gloss over and don't really give, a care about. So be sure to check that out. I work on the website as well as my two colleagues and friends, or buddies, if you will, Matt Off-White and Nathan Van Dyke, who's our resident news guy and general games enthusiast. So, pretty solid group. We do a podcast every week, the Solid State Romcast. So, if you guys are interested in us ranting about current events and talking about nested topics in the annals of gaming history or gaming culture, then be sure to check that out. It's pretty good. I think so, at least. Anyway, to the crux of this update. I found something that was really interesting when going over to the Shaft Enterprises Patlabor info site. It's a site that I frequent. It has a lot of information. If you guys are fans of the Mobile Police Patlabor franchise, whether you're fans of the movies or just the OVA or just the two television series, whichever part of the timeline you're interested in or you have an affinity for, Patlabor.nfo or INFO is your go-to source for information, not just in terms of the plot and the characters and the continuity of the different storylines or how the episodes break down. It's also a perfect place to basically check out every single retail release of anything Patlabor related. I mean, we're talking about the OVAs, we're talking about the movies. It talks about every single pressing of them, both in Japan and domestically in North America. So that's actually an interesting site to check out if you guys are curious about that stuff. Like I said, it's a great source of information for myself. It's how I've found a lot of interesting features on a lot of these releases that I have since acquired and have been continuing to acquire over the coming months. One thing I wanted to talk about is a little commercial that I found. And it's weird because it's a commercial that features Noa Izumi in her Ingram 98, who she nicknames Alphonse affectionately. And it's a commercial that actually is inserted into the eye catch points, which eye catches, for those of you guys not familiar with this concept, eye catches are kind of bookends and book starts for punctuating the start and end of a commercial break and kind of breaking that episode of that anime up into two large chunks, in a sense and in a way that doesn't break the flow or continuity of the episode. It's just a nice little intermission that allows for the insertion of commercial advertisements and TV spots and stuff of that nature. It's something that was it was a technique and it was a style that was heavily used in syndicated televised anime serials from the late 80s onward. They still do it as far as my knowledge tells me. So with the OVA for Mobile Police Patlabor, that's no exception. For episodes 1 through 6, because episode 7 is kind of weird. It's not necessarily part of the canon. It is and it isn't part of the canon of the original OVA series. The 7th episode's more like kind of like a primer to basically get the masses all geared up and telling them, the Special Vehicles Division Section 2 is not dead, they're still around, they're still kicking butt, and guess what? They're getting ready for their first feature-length film romp called Patlabor 1, the movie. And that was actually a pretty huge deal at the time. This is back in 1989, I believe. Yeah, it was 89. And So that's all that seventh episode is. I mean, not to say it's a bad episode. It's actually pretty entertaining. And it's got a pretty cool finale to it. But with episodes 1 through 6, to, I guess, recoup the cost of, the time and money put into there and actually doing something that was really ballsy for the time, Patlabor wasn't just innovative in terms of its plot line or structure or even the universe in which the story takes place. It was also innovative in terms of how it hit the market. Back then, anime OVAs were kind of direct-to-video affairs, and that's actually not meant in an insulting way, because I know what you're thinking. Direct-to-video means that property or that cartoon or that movie is probably crap and was not good enough to get a big screen release. Well, that was not the case in Japan. In Japan, it was a reverse situation. There was such a demand for anime that there wasn't enough airtime on broadcast TV to show it all. And the demand was so high, and people wanted to watch it outside of the animation blocks on television channels in Japan, that they started releasing that stuff direct to video. And in most cases, it was on Laserdisc because that was the biggest platform. It was the most viable one at the time in Japan. As where I said in my last update that in our territory, the United States, Laserdisc was never a popular platform. I mean, it did have a time in the early 90s, late 80s where it actually did have some traction, but for the most part, it was a format that was just for cinephiles and movie enthusiasts and connoisseurs. Nothing more, nothing less. And a lot of that had to do with the pricey cost to entry for the format. I mean, Laserdiscs would cost anywhere from $30 to $70, depending on the running time, because again, Laserdiscs only held so much amount of video on one side, resulting in a lot of movies that would come out as 2-disc sets. Or if you're thinking about special editions, I mean, I have a special edition of Alien that actually houses 3 Laserdiscs. That's not a joke. Another one that's pretty epic is Lonesome Dove, which I just gotten in the mail. Maybe I'll do an update on that, but that's like a 4-disc affair. Yeah, so it was a pricey barrier to entry. But in Japan, it was more successful, just because it was the best platform for them to release their anime on, because they did actually make it in a special aspect ratio that wasn't 4:3 necessarily, so it did require the letterboxing feature that was more popularized with Laserdisc. Also, it provided an avenue for bonus features and extra content to be put on there that didn't necessarily have to do with the original OVA or feature-length film that they were producing for that set or that retail release. So anyway, back to the whole bookend thing, the eye catch feature. Patlabor has this in episodes 1 through 6, and when it debuted in April 25th, 1988 in Japan, well, like I said, they did something extremely ballsy. They actually published and distributed all these OVA episodes at a retail price of 4,800 yen per copy. That's actually really, really cheap. And back then, 4,800 yen, I guess in the United States would have been around $36 to $37. I might be wrong in that estimate. The yen was worth a different amount back then than it was in like 1995. There was something weird that happened during the early 90s where they changed the value of the yen. It's hard for me to actually pinpoint an exact price point and an exact worth, an actual value translation into US dollars, because that happened in Japan and really nowhere else. So it's hard for me to kind of pinpoint that. But I would say they released it at 30 some odd dollars, which was actually cheap for the time in Japan, because most other anime OVAs or televised serials that were brought direct to video, they would actually retail for oftentimes more than twice that figure. So they were actually kind of biting the bullet in terms of the profit margin. They were really taking a hit for the team just to get it out there. And as a result, they had to resort to using sponsors to actually subsidize the cost of developing it, the time and money that went into it, and paying the employees for their time and their effort put into making that stuff a reality. So the particular commercial spot that they use is for a company called Axia. Axia was a popular consumer electronics company in Japan at the time, and I guess during the time they were making Mobile Police Patlabor, they were coming out with their new series of audio cassettes that were recordable. And of course, nowadays that's not commercially relevant because it's no longer a supported format for listening to audio, but it was back then. And it was specifically for their PS2X model for audio recording cassettes. And rather than just have the company or just an advertising bureau come up with like the commercial spot and have some live motion actors shill for this product, the Headgear team actually animated this commercial. Yes, they actually have an animated section or scenes where Noah is actually, I guess she has her hands wrapped around her knees and she's huddled down, she's asleep, she's dreaming. And she does this at several points in the OVA as well as the televised series, where she has a dream where she has these fantasies about piloting Alphonse and doing stuff that in her reality is not possible. And specifically in this commercial, she dreams and fantasizes about, piloting Alphonse, and actually there's a scene where Alphonse is slicing through a bunch of asteroids or meteors with a lightsaber, basically, a beam sword, which is something that was, I guess, a feature in the Mobile Suit Gundam series of animes. In fact, I think every single one of them, with the exception of, I think, maybe G Gundam, I don't know. That anime is not for me. I don't like it. I don't like its face. I don't like the way it looks. I just don't like it. Matt Off-White would disagree with that, but that's his opinion, and I'm not really worried about his opinion. But that notion that she has these fantasies and these dreams about doing stuff piloting Alphonse that is just not, it's not possible with the technology that they have in their world, is something that is kind of a result of the fact that, she is kind of a dreamer. Like, that's kind of like the appealing factor that's part of her character. She's a dreamer. She has all these hopes and aspirations and stuff. And that's fueled by her love for labors, and it's also fueled by her just genuine naivete because she's young. But anyway, enough about that. Let's actually just I'm going to show you guys this 30-second spot so that way you guys can see this for the first time, possibly. It took me months to find out, like, to actually track down a digital form of this video to actually view, and I can't stop watching for some reason. It's just an interesting cul-de-sac in the Patlabor franchise, and honestly, it's just a commercial. However, I will say that interesting piece of trivia for those of you who are collectors for Patlabor materials and memorabilia or souvenirs or whatever like that related to Patlabor. In one of their, I guess, their music compilation CDs, they do have a couple of AMVs, anime music videos, also featuring some live motion performances by the singer who does the songs. They actually do use stock footage from these commercials, and I'm not sure why they exist, but it's pretty cool that they do. And that's actually the first time that I saw that footage. I'm like, where does that happen in the OVA? It doesn't happen in any of the episodes. It doesn't happen in the television series. And I've yet to watch the new type anime series that has like 25 extra episodes or something to that effect. Like I said, I'm working my way up to owning the original television series run that came out in 1989. But yeah, so just an interesting piece of trivia for you guys out there who are Patlabor fans. And with that, let's roll the clip.
Cassette は X の領域を手にした。新音質 PSX 登場。
Axia.
So there it is. That was the 30-second spot that they actually put in between the eye catches, or the bookends, if you will, of the first, and second half chunks of the Patlabor OVA episodes. And it's just, I still think it's just a really fascinating little cul-de-sac as far as trivia with this series goes. And so hope you guys enjoyed that, and that'll pretty much do it for this update for Boricua Fractalus. As always, I'm your host, John Rivera, saying thank you guys for watching, and if you guys have any comments or criticisms or just want to drop some feedback on top of me and start a conversation with me, be sure to comment below this video. And also subscribe to my channel. I'll be posting updates just whenever I can. Also posting stuff on the Solid State Gamer website, because that does take up a lot of my time, as I'm one of the main content contributors to the site. But yeah, stay tuned to that, and stay tuned into the Solid State Gamer. And yeah, thank you guys for watching again, and I'll see you guys next time.